Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
Today we're going to talk about infidelity. Ooh. Marriage used to mean a lot of things. But one of the things it meant was you were exclusive to your partner. You were exclusive to them emotionally. You were exclusive to them physically. So there was to be no sexual intimacy with another person outside your marriage. And there's to be no romantic feelings for anyone outside your marriage. Well, marriage has evolved and our lifestyles have evolved. And there are a lot of people who are getting married later in life because they know that they're not ready to be exclusive to one person. But once that decision is made, it's expected that you are going to remain loyal. Now, in the past, we know that marriage actually meant a man owning a woman. And even the vows reflected that. And we know there's all kinds of scriptures from way back about the price for infidelity, meaning stoning to death. Of course, I always noticed it was just a woman that was stoned. So the idea of marriage was a man owns you and he owns the rights to you. And if you violate that trust, then he has the right to kill you. Now, we know that's no longer the case. But I've had some friends that have handled that issue of infidelity in various ways. And I've had situations where men so-called cheated on their wives. They had an intimate relationship outside the marriage. And I've had the women that responded differently. Now, one woman, she was quite devastated, but when her husband died, she did invite the other woman or allow that other woman to come to the funeral. And everybody kind of knew that this was the deal because he'd had some children by her and children by the wife. And so, how do you ignore the fact that he had another family, even though it was emotionally painful for her, but she did understand this other woman was also mourning. Now, I had another friend whose husband had a couple of girlfriends outside the marriage, and she was quite enraged when they showed up at the funeral, even though they felt like they were in a relationship with him as well. So now there are two different ways people have responded, but men aren't the only one who go outside their marriage. I had two male friends who told me about their situations. One, when he found out his wife was having an affair with his friend, he was getting ready to go and murder the guy. He got all the way up to the doorstep. He had an axe in his backpack, and he was going to pull it out and chop this man up. And then something just came up, just a wave of forgiveness came over him just before the man opened the door, and he just walked away, and so he didn't kill the man. The second one, the man, he found out his wife was having an affair with another guy. He was going to shoot the guy to death. He had put the gun in his trunk of his car, and he got ready to open the trunk and go in and shoot the man. And somehow when he opened the trunk, he couldn't find the gun. It just wouldn't appear. It was like it was gone. So it seemed like in both cases there was divine intervention, so they didn't do that thing. But some people almost do feel like infidelity is cause to kill. Now, it's no longer a state offense punishable by law, but some people feel like it's an emotional offense. Can you forgive? And do you really own the rights to someone's body or emotions? And what happens if you do reconcile? Do you ever trust again? So, sisters, let's take a look at this whole issue of infidelity, because often it is something that can destroy someone's career if it's felt it is a reflection of their ethics, morals, values, and reliability. So what do you think?
I think that infidelity can be a form of abuse. and that a lot of times when there is infidelity, it doesn't happen out of a vacuum. The couple may have fallen apart. There may have been instances where the person was in a position to fall away from faithfulness. Gary Smalley calls it the tingles. When you are having problems in your marriage or your relationship and you are uh, finding the kind of comfort and attention from someone of the opposite sex that you are not receiving from your spouse. And he tells you to run away from that because that initial feeling of attraction is what's going to open the door. Maybe you are working together in an office situation and you're working late, and then you find yourself working late more and more. And before you know it, people like to say, oh, it just happened. But really, there were steps that built up to this, and you did not put up the stop sign and cut it off before it got too far and became an affair. Some affairs, people are not doing these purposely and they are accidental, but you have opened a door to that situation. And it is such an intense sense of betrayal that it's even used as examples in the Bible when God talks about his people pro- uh, prostituting themselves with other false gods. And there are so many instances of it. But I'd also like to address the fact that it was also very wayward in how they dealt with adultery in the Bible. Whereas you said, Naima, they always want to stone the woman and then let the guy off. And that totally is the way that man works. Your sin is going to be punished, but we're going to forget about mine. And I would like at this point to recommend uh, a woman who addresses these kind of issues by the name of Leslie Vernick. That's Bernick. She has a blog and a website, leslievernick.com, where she talks about the issues of infidelity, but also abuse and issues of forgiveness, whether or not you should forgive someone. And I know of another author, I think it's the name of his book is Leave Him, but he talks about restoring marriages by giving the spouse that has committed the crime of adultery or infidelity, or maybe it's even been abusive and alcoholism and drugs, any of those kind of things, to give this person a time of separation from the spouse and the family to get their act together, anywhere from 6 to 12 months. And if this person does not change their ways, and he's not advocating divorce, but he's saying you might need to divorce this person and let that person go, leave him. We happen to have a married couple in our couples group, this is years ago, that shared an instance of adultery in their relationship, and how everyone told the wife, you have every right to divorce him. You know, the Bible supports you. It says if someone commits adultery, that person should be cut off. And but the wife chose to forgive them, forgive her erring husband, and it was a long road toward forgiveness, counseling, making things right, and restoring not just their marriage but their family. So it goes both ways. Is the erring spouse willing to change and mend his ways and not continue on in this manner, or are they someone that you really should leave him, let him go? And in the case, if it's a woman, let her go because they're not being faithful to the commitment that they have made. Cheryl?
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking there are a lot of different ways people are looking to be coupled, as in sometimes they're looking to be throupled. They want to add someone into their um, marriage bed, or they practice polyamory, or they open it up because they feel there's something missing in a relationship. And sometimes when people open up a marriage, that is a beginning of of the end. And in fact, they've even talked about uh, how when people have these recommitment ceremonies, that usually the couple is going to end up divorcing soon afterward. So, these recommitment ceremonies don't necessarily mean, oh, with 30 years, we're going to have this, redo our vows. You shouldn't have to do that. But, that's whatever makes you feel good. Now, I looked up something because I was interested in it. And so I looked up infidelity in marriage to say, okay, what's the deal with this? And the first thing that came up says men are generally more likely to leave a marriage after infidelity than women, but not all men do. According to one study, 61% of men stay married after their partner cheats, compared to 44% of women. However, other sources say that men are more likely to leave if their spouse cheats. Now, that makes more sense to me, and I'll tell you why. At one point, I was um, going to Al Anon for spouses of alcoholics. This is, from my first marriage. And I knew then that a lot of times men who were married to alcoholic women tended to leave, where women tended to stay. Now, I found Al Anon, full disclosure, I found it very unhelpful in the situation I was in because it was also abusive, but because I just found the people who were going to the meetings would spend a lot of time with these stories about how terrible things had happened to them. And it was almost like they were one upping each other about, oh, this person, he fell asleep and, he did this, and I'm not making excuses for him anymore. But after a few weeks, I realized, you know what? I'm not feeling any better. And so when we talk about infidelity, some people can choose to say, okay, we're going to go to counseling and we're going to get through this. But like you said, Barbara, these things don't happen in a vacuum. Usually these things start with emotional affairs where one person gets close to maybe what they call their work spouse. And, those things kind of culminate into more, instead of it just being a working relationship, it becomes a more personal relationship. They start sharing when they have problems. There's, and I read so many advice columns where people say, well, they're constantly texting someone all the time, and they're texting them after hours, and it's not work related. And it's almost like grooming. I think things don't happen accidentally. I think they happen accidentally on purpose. And I think the way a pedophile doesn't come in and snatch a child off the street, that a pedophile is usually someone that is known to the child and to the family, that there's grooming behavior. And I think there's also grooming behavior in infidelity. It can start with the emotional affair. It can start with, oh, we're really good friends and we're sharing, oh, my problems with my wife or my husband. And that person tends to become very invested in that, but they're invested to the point of they don't cheer for you. Your friends will always cheer for things to get better. But when someone is grooming you, they are looking for things to get worse and for you to and them to rely. And as one in a week, I just want to share this. In a week, I'm going to be coming back to Chicago for my 50-year high school reunion. And reunions and Facebook meetups and things like that can be very tricky because there was infidelity. And I'm not going to say which high school reunion it was, but there was definitely infidelity happening at one of my high school reunions, where someone who had gotten married left her husband at home and did something with someone else from high school. And those things, I think they happen common with, looking up the ex on Facebook. You know, we invite these things. And so these things happen accidentally on purpose. They happen because we want them to happen. I think at some point, you get the yellow flags and you keep going through them. And then you just speed right through the red flag.
Red light.
Yeah, and just keep going. And then it's like, well, I didn't mean for this to happen. We have to do some introspection. Yes, you did. You just didn't think you'd get caught.
You know, when I first wrote the book, The Female Solution, it was motivated by all of these families that I had seen breaking apart and the impact on the children when someone decided to divorce because of a lot of times infidelity.
Yeah.
And you see the anger, you see the hurt, and they decide, look, I don't want you anymore. You had an affair with this person. That's it. And the fallout from that, the child is distressed. The family goes into financial distress because now you're paying for two houses, 2 car notes, everything, because everything's split. You don't have the emotional support or the financial support of the in-law families. I mean, all of that's gone. So you have such destruction. And I was seeing in my classrooms, whether it was elementary school or high school, I was seeing the impact of the broken families. And so I began to think about this. The whole marriage, and in a lot of other cultures, marriage is not just between the two people. It's the families are married. The ceremonies, like our families are
Well,
coming together.
that's the whole point of the marriage, of the wedding, and thing. You're blending two
You're
families,
bleeding two
whether it's
families.
two kingdoms like that, back
Yeah.
centuries ago. But it's a blending of two families.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And when the relationship breaks apart, you're breaking all those relations. You're
that's
breaking the relationship
exactly
with that
right.
aunt who used to come babysit or that grandma that used to help out. You're breaking all of that. And the impact is deeply felt in the lives of the children. But the parents who decide they can't forgive or can't reconcile, they can't work it out, sometimes the anger or the feeling of hurt is so deep, they really don't see beyond my feelings are hurt. And I want to take a look at that for a minute
Yeah, because
because
I
if
have
you,
something to say about that, though.
okay,
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, you make a vow and you're going to love and cherish and honor this person forever. But can you really own and control someone else's emotions? Now, there are cultures where people go to extremes to try to keep any kind of infidelity from happening. In Islam, which I've been a part of a global Muslim community for the past several decades, and I've seen various extremes of keeping the sexes separate, where nobody sees you but your husband, and some places where you don't even go out the house, and unless you just absolutely have to. I mean, just a whole thing. Or you're walking separate places down the street, or you're in separate classrooms, or just everything separate for the whole idea of, well, we're going to prevent infidelity. But what I've observed is that it doesn't prevent infidelity.
No, it doesn't.
People still find ways to get together with somebody that they really want, even if you're all covered, nobody sees you, and all that stuff. So it's like you can't regulate emotions. You can't regulate a desire to be with someone, to be an intimate partner with someone. You can't. And then we know that there have been times in the past where that the penalty of that was killing you. Did that
Well,
make
they
any?
still have honor killings in some
They still have honor
place.
killings,
Yeah.
and I know
Yeah.
of a family where that happened within the last decade. So you still have honor killings, but does that do we really believe that you have a right to hurt someone, whether it's through the law and take everything from them, take them to the cleaners because they cheated on you, or if it's kill them because they cheated on you? Do we really believe that
And it's in the
you have
news
the right?
it's in the news every single day that someone kills and it doesn't even have to be
A
a
spouse.
husband. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a spouse. It can be an ex-girlfriend or
Yeah,
boyfriend,
the
and they
stalker.
want to, they go and they want to kill everybody in the house. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing
Okay, those
is,
people are crazy.
well, of course
Yeah,
they are,
but
because we want to own other human beings.
that's
Yeah.
the problem.
And
That's
that
That's the
should not
problem.
be like that. Because,
that's
even in Malachi, the Bible says God hates divorce. And people will take that and try to force people to stay in a marriage that is abusive, there is drugs, there is alcoholism, there is beating, and they will say, well, God hates divorce, but they will stop at that verse and not continue on where it says, and I am against your defiling of your marriage relationship. See, people just read the part that they want to do to influence people to do what they want them to do, when it really is not biblical to force someone to stay with someone who has committed infidelity. Now, if there is an opportunity for there to be forgiveness, so be it. But this is going to take a really deep change in the person who has committed this, because they didn't stop when they got, like you said, Cheryl, all the signals. They rushed past the yellow light. And then when they got to the stoplight, they didn't stop.
But you know, there's something else that Cheryl said that I think we need to take a look at. People want to own people, and you
People
can't.
want to own people.
And this is why people who don't forgive believe that they have a right not to forgive, instead of realizing that relationships are about free will. We're all about free will. And if
Yeah.
someone feels that they have now this is what could happen. If people will honor and respect the free will of every individual, then we can really have really loving relationships. And if one feels that they can no longer honor or do not want to remain in an exclusive relationship, you should be able to part amicably without it being a punitive thing, because they have a free will to own their own emotions and their own bodies.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
because we have this idea, I own you, you're mine, I'm going to punish you if you take your body and share it with someone else, I believe that is a way of thinking that we need to evolve out of. If we're going to really be loving partners, love needs to be free. And that means if we are agreeing we're going to be a couple for life or whatever, then we be that. If you at some point feel that you no longer want to be exclusive to me, I need to be able to let you go and be with that other
See,
person.
She's
And
going to see. She's going to see you.
and we
yeah,
need to be able to not feel like we got to destroy each other in the court,
that's
and
exactly
destroy
right.
each other financially, and
Yeah.
and allow each other the decision to grow in another direction. Now that's hard to do, but like you say, sure, there are always signals, and you know when you've grown apart, you know when you no longer have the same interests. And like you're saying, Barbara, you know, people feeling like it's the right thing to do to stay in a situation that's abusive. That's insane. You should only
It
be
is.
coupled with someone who is enhancing your life. If it's painful, what's the purpose of it? We're not here to suffer. So I
Yeah.
think we can evolve to a higher level of understanding of what this marriage relationship is. But it needs to be based on free will, and you need to be able. I do like the way they have the no fault divorce, because sometimes nobody's fault. You just okay. I don't,
You just,
we used to be able to drink,
irreconcilable
now I don't drink
differences.
anymore, or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't do the things we need to do. I'm not interested in the career we started out together. Whatever it is, we're not equally yoked anymore. And rather than me stay here pretending that I want to be with you and I really want to be with this other person, rather than me lie about it and keep this other person hanging on and saying I love you, but I can't leave my wife because then she'll divorce me and then she'll
Take
take
everything.
care. So rather than us doing that, if we can just be honest when we have developed other feelings for other people, that's one step. And then still keep our commitment to our children to co-parent so that their lives are not shattered and they're not being made to feel like they got to choose between one spouse or the other or one side or the other. Because I see that happen a lot as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to tell you all this because this is kind of funny. We are children of the 70s. We grew up in the 70s. And remember when they said, if you love something, set it free. And
Yeah.
it used to say, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it's yours forever. And if it doesn't, it
It
never
never
really was.
was.
Well,
Mhm.
then they started saying, if you love something, set it free. If it doesn't come back to you, hunt it down and kill it. And that's the thing is, and it's silly because it's funny, but it's not funny because people actually do. They
I
hunt
know,
it
Yeah.
down.
shocking.
They actually hunt it down and kill it because they think, I
How dare
love
you
you.
leave me?
And if I can't
I
have
can't have
you,
you, nobody
nobody
can.
can. So we have to really remember that we don't own anyone. We
Right.
only own us. So if this isn't working for you, I mean, I'll be sad. I'll help you pack. You only need one suitcase because I'm gonna burn all your clothes. Um,
You've seen too many of those movies.
And
but
now,
but seriously, uh, infidelity doesn't start by a drunken weekend or something. You have been grooming yourself for this. So we need to think about the signs and the signals that we're giving out when we get to that point before we say, oh, this just happened. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. And then it's up to you whether or not you choose to forgive. And forgiveness is for you, it's not for the other person.
right. And I think also, because there are situations where someone says, well, my wife and I, my husband and I, we were going through this difficult time. And like you said, you start confiding in that other person, and they know that you're having problems. And so they're welcoming you, having them as a
That
counselor.
attention. Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're being the sympathetic spouse that you wish your spouse was. Next thing you know,
Right.
you're in a relationship with that person. But then maybe after the difficult time with your spouse, you realize, I really do love my spouse. We just needed to work that thing out. But in that
You've
interim,
ruined it.
you have
You've ruined
stepped
it now.
outside the marriage. So if you are able to be honest and say, I was emotionally distraught, I should not have turned to this person, I don't want to be married to them, I still want to keep our family, do you think it's possible for someone to look at the whole situation and realize during that period of estrangement, a relationship happened with someone else, but it is over? So can you come back? Do you think it's possible to forgive?
And you know what? Be wise,
No.
because the person that is cheating on their spouse with you, they will turn around and do the same thing to you
That's
after they've
exactly
broken
right.
up. They've got this pattern.
That's
Don't
right.
be foolish and think, oh, he really loves me more than his wife, who's this awful person. And you
That's
find
right.
out they are really not all that at all. They have this habit of being unfaithful, and they will be unfaithful to you.
And you'll be the awful person that they talk about to the next woman.
Exactly. Leopards don't change their spots.
Spots.
Absolutely.
So
Well, it is time to go, people. But we want you all to leave your comments. Have you been in a relationship where it ended because the person was not faithful? Have you been one who stepped outside of your marriage and was unfaithful? Were you honest about it? Did you reconcile? Did you divorce? Do you regret it? Did you end up with the person you cheated with? Or did that relationship break up?
Or
Let us
did you stop it when you felt the tingles?
Well, let us know, and like and subscribe to our Facebook channel and our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms, and we will see you. And leave some ideas of some things you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to take your suggestions. And until next week, I'm Naeem.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Barbara. We are Three Black Moms. Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three black moms.